Hello everyone, welcome to another audio blog by Matthew Akira in Lewisham, working for SLAM, which stands for South London and Maudsley. SLAM provides the widest range of mental health services in the UK. You can check out more on what SLAM does on the services site, which is www.slam.nhs.uk, or you can check out their members site, which is www.members.slam, which is spelled SLAM, .nhs.uk. Now, as usual, what I blog about is not endorsed by South London and Maudsley, nor am I an expert in mental health, psychology or psychiatry, but I am a carer of someone who does suffer from hearing voices, which is what this audio blog is going to be on about. And I feel, because of mental health stigma in society today, and it's still rather prevalent, it is very important to raise awareness of this condition. Now, on the 14th of September is an event or a movement called World Hearing Voices Day. Although it's not mentioned on the NHS calendar list, it does relate to mental health, especially to mental health conditions like schizophrenia or psychosis. Although not all people suffering from these conditions actually hear voices, and to be honest, you can have you don't actually have to have a mental health condition in order to hear voices. Still, hearing voices can be a condition of mental health illnesses that I have mentioned before. So a question many people tend to ask is, what is it like to hear voices? Now, I've never heard any voices myself, but can you imagine one day finding yourself hearing voices telling you to do things, offering suggestions? Some voices might say kind things, but unfortunately I'm sure that many voices might say terrible things to someone suffering from hearing voices. Some may persuade you to try and do things, or convince you to do things which might seem odd or weird, but perhaps you wouldn't know it at the time. Or you could imagine how it must feel if you hear more than one voice at the same time, like a multitude of voices, which can be very frightening. Or perhaps hearing different voices, like one day you're hearing an angry, low voice, or the next day a soft voice, which is really convincing, or another voice with a completely different persona. Another question people might ask is, how do people feel when such convincing voices tell them things? Well, some people feel scared or paranoid because initially, when you're hearing things like that, you just don't know what's going on. You can't rationalize it. Others hide away from people because they feel that they'll be judged mad or crazy, hence the stigma. Some can just about cope with these voices, although I don't think that's the case straight away. It's something that you might perhaps learn to do once you have some long-term suffering. Perhaps I'm not sure what the best way to put that with. It's not something you don't cope with straight away. Some will get a multitude of other illnesses because of hearing the voices, like depression, and sometimes even physical symptoms, like they might decide to not eat as much because of hearing so many voices. Now, what exactly happens on World Hearing Voices Day? Now, as usual, when it comes to events or movements or raising awareness, sometimes I tend to go to certain websites which explain a bit more information on events or movements, and I think this is quite I've done the same thing here anyway. I've gone to another site which explained this day quite well. And this site, which I felt gives good information, is called Intervoice, which is www.intervoiceonline, all one word, .org. So I say again, it's www.intervoiceonline.org. Now, what they say here is World Hearing Voices Day has been celebrated since 2006 to challenge negative attitudes towards people who hear voices, destigmatize the experience, and raise awareness of the issues facing the estimated 5% to 10% of women and men and children who hear voices across the world. It is now 2013, and World Hearing Voices Day falls on the 14th of September every year. So okay, World Hearing Voices Day. What can you do on World Hearing Voices Day? And what this site suggests, which is Intervoice, they suggest that you could host an event to raise awareness, or even go to an event to learn about this sort of condition. You could use the day to talk about hearing voices, share some of the site's facts, and promote some of the discussion with friends, colleagues, and perhaps relatives. Or you could use social media to raise awareness by perhaps tweeting about voices, blogging about voices, using the hashtag World Hearing Voices Day. So that's a recommended hashtag to use on Twitter. So okay then, what is Intervoice? What is this site all about? What do they do? Well, Intervoice is an international network for training, education, and research into hearing voices. Now, Intervoice aims to, and I'll give you just some points here of the site, they aim to show that hearing voices is a normal, though unusual, variation in human behavior. They also aim to show that the problem is not hearing voices, but the inability to cope with the experience. Another of Intervoice's aims is to educate society about the meaning of voices, so to reduce ignorance and anxiety, and to ensure that this difficult approach on hearing voices is better known by voice hearers, families, professionals, and the general public. Now, Intervoice does a lot more than that. I'm just picking out a few that I can put in this audio blog. But I'd like to just move on to other aspects of this difficult mental health condition. Or I wouldn't say it's just mental health, but a difficult symptom. Now, how do people cope when they suffer from hearing voices? And I've taken some information from the site, because as I said, I'm not an expert on this thing. Now, some people initially try to block out the voices. As I said earlier on, if you can imagine yourself one day hearing a voice, I mean, I don't think anyone can imagine it, to be honest. But I think that's what most people do, block it out, especially because they can't control it. Others use distraction, like eventually they might use art therapy, trying to find ways to cope with the voice, or even exercise. Some will turn to faith or spirituality, which will help them cope, and this can be done with other mental health illnesses as well. A lot of people who suffer from mental illnesses actually do use faith and spirituality to help them try and cope with devastating mental health problems, while others try to reason with the voices or challenge them. Most may take medication to quieten the voice, or actually do all or some of the above while on medication. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm not expert in this, nor am I a sufferer of hearing voices, so as far as I know, all these strategies can be valid, but I'm sure each has their positives and their negatives when people try them. Hence, I'm sure many sufferers out there do not like being over-medicated or taking a medication, or if they didn't take medication and tried another alternative, maybe it's not so successful. Now, in regards to Slam, because I usually try and relate some of the audio blogs I do towards what South London or Maudsley does, because they're specialised in mental health services anyway, is that there has been some recent research into tackling the symptoms of hearing voices in a way which sufferers can cope with hearing voices. A professor named Professor Thomas Craig, who's Professor of Social Psychiatry at the IOP, or otherwise known as the Institute of Psychiatry, and he's a consultant psychiatrist at the South London and Maudsley, is leading the randomised study of the Avatar system, and I think it's gone live, so I'm sure it's gone live now, which enables people with schizophrenia to control the voice of their hallucinations. Now, this computer-based system could provide quick and effective therapy that is far more successful than current pharmaceutical treatments, helping to reduce the frequency and severity of episodes of schizophrenia. Now, the Avatar system was developed by Professor Julian Left of the UCL, I believe that's University College London, of Mental Health Sciences, and Dr. Mark Huckfell and Dr. Jeffrey Williams of the UCL Department of Speech, Hearing and Phonetics Research Department. It will be interesting to see how far Avatar therapy will go, so watch this space. Now, as mentioned before, there has been some events on World Hearing Voices Day, and there was a recent congress over in Australia and an event over in Wales. But this is a growing movement, so keep an eye out for events in future. And perhaps one day I might even go to an event, and perhaps anyone's listening who can hold events to raise awareness on hearing voices. Perhaps at some point, maybe next year, I don't know, they might try to raise an event. I encourage sufferers or those who hear voices to blog about their experiences and raise awareness to lessen the stigma in society. Just because you hear voices, it does not mean you have to be removed from society. You are a part of society, and it is important to keep awareness of this issue in the spotlight. While non-sufferers, I encourage you to read up on information about hearing voices, especially carers who care for those who hear voices, and help raise awareness. Just because you might not have the problem of hearing voices, this does not mean that sufferers who hear voices just disappear. Why should we ignore them? Maybe together we can learn so much. I hope this audio blog has been informative for everyone, and if others would like to have a try at the hand in audio blogging for Slam Twig Ops, we would be most delighted. So send us your views or news on mental health, especially in Southeast London. If you're a carer or a service user or someone with lived experience, even a professional staff, we'd certainly like to hear from you. For more mental health information in and around Southeast London and sometimes further afield, feel free to visit our social media sites on our blog, which is on WordPress, which is www.slamtwigops.wordpress.com, or check out our Facebook site, which has up-to-date mental health information in and around London, and up-to-date mental health services information and mental health news on www.facebook.com/slamtwigoperations, or check out our Twitter channel at www.twitter.com/slamtwigops, or if you don't like a lot of reading and you like to see visual things, check out our YouTube version by going to YouTube and typing in Slam Twig Ops. That's one word. I would tell you the actual link address, but it's just way too long. Anyway, you've been listening to an audio blog from Matthew Mackenzie, Karen Lewisham, and thank you for listening.